Okay, this is about angles that are formed by parallel lines and a transversal. M and N are parallel. They're parallel lines. And by the way, we can write it like this. This means parallel, the symbol right here. And this is a transversal. A transversal line has to go through at least two lines. Now we're going to learn about all these different angles that two parallel lines and a transversal makes and the relationship between these angles. Well, the first one we're going to talk about is vertical angles. Vertical angles make an X. They make an X. So angle 4 and angle 2, these two are congruent. These two are congruent here, 1 and 3. And the reason why is angle 1 and angle 2 add up to 180. They're supplementary. They make a straight line. Well, 2 and 3 make a straight line. They're 180. 3 and 4 makes 180 degrees. So it just ends up, and if you use patty paper, angle 2 and angle 4 are congruent. They're both acute angles. And angle 3 and angle 1 are congruent. So looking at this X, this angle right here, this angle here, and this angle here are congruent. They're called vertical angles. And then this angle here and this angle here are congruent. Those are vertical angles. So now if we go over to our parallel lines, so on our parallel lines in our transversal, here happens to be an X, and here happens to be an X. So we have those two X's right there. Those are both vertical angles. So therefore, this angle here and this angle here are vertical. This angle here and this angle here are vertical. This angle here and here are vertical. And this angle and this angle are vertical. The other thing I think about is a V and a V and a V and a V, and then they're stuck together, making the X. Corresponding angles. Corresponding angles are congruent, and they're on the same side of a transversal. They're going to be on the same side of the transversal. They'd be on the same side, be on the same side of the transversal. And what happens is they slide down the transversal, they translate, and they're congruent. They'll fit right on top of each other. So what am I talking about here? So first of all, let's highlight, this is the transversal, this is the transversal. They have to be on the same side of that transversal. Okay, so this angle here it corresponds to this angle here. This angle here corresponds to this angle here. They'd slide up the transversal. They'd slide up the transversal. So this one would slide up to here. This one would slide down to here, or vice versa. Okay, and they're on the same side. This angle here is congruent to this angle here. They're on the same side of that transversal. This angle here is congruent to this angle here. They are corresponding angles. So those are all corresponding angles. This angle here corresponds to this angle right there, etc. So if this angle was 135, then this would mean this is 135, okay? And this happens to be 135 as well because vertical angle's even, and that would translate to 135 right here. If this angle is 25, this angle would be 25. We've talked about adjacent angles before. Adjacent angles are two angles put together that share a same side or ray. They're right next to each other. These happen to be complementary angles along with they're also adjacent angles. These are adjacent angles. These are adjacent angles. These happen to also be supplementary. And these angles, this angle and this angle here, are not adjacent because they have an angle in between them. Linear pair angles. Linear pairs are two adjacent angles that form a straight line. In other words, they're supplementary angles, which add up to, remember what adds up to? 180 degrees, right? Straight line adds up to 180 degrees. Well, let's look at these parallel lines and a transversal. Let's look at this line here, and then let's look at this line here, okay? So let's look at this line first, and then I'm gonna write a couple pairs that are linear, okay? So here we go. Linear pairs. Some examples would be like angle 2 and angle 3 because they add up to 180, and angle 1 and angle 4 because they add up to 180. Now, of course, there's other ones, but I'm going to stop there. Angle 5 and angle 6, those add up to 180. And angle 8 and angle 7 add up to 180. So those are some examples. There's really more, but again, these two make 180, these two. But 6 and 7 also add up to 180. These add up to 180, and so forth. So there happens to be 8 linear pairs in here.